A frontier lab just released its most capable public model ever, and the headline feature wasn't power. It was the model admitting that it's wrong. That inversion is the whole enterprise story. Yesterday, an AI lab did something it had spent the entire year saying was too dangerous to do. It handed the public a model from the tier it had previously logged behind closed doors. A class of model powerful enough that until now only cyber defense partners and a handful of biology researchers were allowed to touch. And here's the detail that should stop every technology leader cold. The model is so capable that the safety system attached to it doesn't make it smarter. It makes it answer your question with a weaker model instead. Here's what happened on June 9th. Anthropic released Claude Fable 5, the first publicly available model in its Mythos class, a tier that company positions above its existing flagship, Opus. Anthropic says Fable 5's capabilities exceed those of any model it has ever made generally available, and that the lead grows the longer and more complex the task. But releasing a model this capable, in its own words, comes with a risk. So they shipped it with safeguards that route certain questions, cybersecurity, biology, chemistry, to the next most capable model, which is Opus 4.8 instead. Those guardrails are tuned to trigger, on average, in under 5% of sessions. Now hold that picture. A model so powerful that the responsible way to release it was to build a trapdoor that quietly swaps in a weaker model when the topic gets dangerous. It is a genuinely new shape for enterprise AI, and the numbers around it tell you how seriously to take it. And the access story has a clock on it. Fable 5 is included on Pro, Max, Team, and seat-based enterprise plans at no extra cost only through 22nd June. On June 23rd, Anthropic removes it from those plans and continued use shifts to consumption-based usage credits billed at API rates $10 per million input tokens, 50 per million output. That's double what Opus 4.8 does. In a subscription, it counts as roughly twice the usage too. Now, here's where I want to slow everything down because the whole internet is covering the wrong story. The headlines are all most powerful model ever, and Mythos goes public. Capability, capability, capability. That's the easy read. Here's the read after 15 years across enterprise tech. The most important AI story of the last 2 weeks isn't the powerful model that launched yesterday. It is a quieter line in the release notes of the model before it. 2 weeks ago, on May 28th, the same lab shipped Claude Opus 4.8. Modest capability bump on paper, it moved from 64 to 69 on a coding benchmark. Forgettable. But buried in that release was the number that actually matters for anyone deploying this in production. A 4 times improvement in honesty. Specifically, it became the first model in line to score 0% on uncritically reported flawed results and 4 times less likely than its predecessor to let a defect in its own work pass without flagging it. And here's the tell. When the company's own CTO talked about that release, he didn't lead with that benchmark. He said, and I'm close to quoting, the improvement I keep coming back to is honesty. The chief technology officer of a frontier AI lab handed a more powerful model, chose to talk about the model knowing when it's wrong, put two events side by side, and the real story snaps into focus. We have officially crossed from an era of how capable is it into an era of can you trust what it tells you? The fallback trapdoor on Fable 5 and the honesty metric on Opus 4.8 are the same admission wearing two outfits. Capability has outrun our ability to verify it. So the frontier is now moving to trust. So what do you actually do with this? 3 moves. You can start all 3 this week. 1. Test Fable 5 inside the free window, but test it on the hard stuff. It's included in your paid plan only through June 22nd. And the model's lead grows on long, complex tasks. So don't waste the window on toy prompts. Run it against your single thorniest real workflow and the multiple step one Opus struggles with. And decide before the meter starts whether the result justifies double the cost. Second, make honesty a procurement criterion, not just accuracy. The shift this fortnight tells you where to look. Stop asking vendors on how often is it right. Start asking, what does it do when it is unsure? And does it tell me? A model that flags its own uncertainty is worth more in production than a slightly smarter one that fails silently, because the silent feature is the one that reaches your consumer. 3. Design for the fallback. Don't get surprised by it. If you build on a model that silently routes sensitive queries to a different, weaker model, your output quality is no longer one thing, it's two, depending on the topic. Map which of the use cases brush against the safeguarded zones and assume the answer there comes from a backup model. Architect for that variance now, because it shows up as an inconsistency a customer catches. So the quiet story this week. Here's the piece that didn't make the headlines, and it reframes everything. Look at what the safeguard actually is. For the first time I can think of, a company has shipped a product whose premier feature is deliberately throttled. They built a model, decided parts of it were too capable to expose, and wired in a mechanism to serve you something less powerful on purpose. We have spent 70 years in computing assuming the next version is strictly better than the last. This is the first mainstream product where better and safe openly point in different directions, and safe has won. That's not a footnote. That's the new operating reality for every leader buying AI. The frontier is no longer just what the model can do. It is what will they let it do for you on this topic today. And that answer is now something a vendor tunes, not something you own. The leaders who win in this era won't be the ones chasing the most powerful model. They'll be the ones who'll understand exactly where the guardrails sit in the products they're betting their roadmap on. So your homework this week, open Fable 5 before June 22nd, where it's still free on your plan, and run it against one workflow your current model keeps getting almost right. Then ask yourself the harder question. Not was it smarter, but did it tell me where it was unsure? That is the muscle that matters now. And the question I actually want in the comments. Be honest. For your enterprise, which matters more right now? A model that's 10% more capable or a model that reliably tells you when it doesn't know? And does your current vendor evaluation even measure the second one? Tell me below. I read everyone. And the best answer becomes next week's tension. So this was AI Unpacked this week. I'll see you next week. This is Raj. Namaskar.